Action.
Good evening. My name is Hugh Knight and I'm the Fechtmeister of Die Schlachtschule. We're going to continue the series of videos I've been creating for absolute brand new beginners to the school. In the previous videos we talked about stance, grip, the guards, and the very first cut, the Zornhauer. In this video we're going to talk about two solo drills. Now, I get people coming to me all the time and asking me what they can do for solo training, and the answer is almost nothing. Solo training in the Kunst des Fechtens is really not very useful. So much of what we do depends on the bind, or what happens in the bind, or leaving the bind, or whatever. However, there are two drills that for novices can be very helpful, and they are the guards drill and the four cuts drill, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight. In these drills, you're going to learn the four basic cuts of the longsword that aren't master cuts, right? So the two Oberhaue and the two Unterhaue, and how to put them together in one continuous flow. And you're going to learn the guards drill, in which you learn to transition from guard to guard to guard while walking. All right. So we're going to try and get two views here, sideways and from the front. All right. So let's begin. So the first drill we're going to do is the guards drill. The guards drill is simply each of the guards in turn on both sides, except of course von Tag, which we don't do from the left side. So the key here is to learn to move with an attack, and we're going to talk about that. The attack isn't actually the important part, but it shows you the mechanics of how to do the guard transition, and at the same time I get to teach you to thrust while I'm teaching you the guard, so it's sort of a twofold. I like it. So we begin in von Tag. Remember that von Tag is done with a saber grip in a relaxed position, sword 45 degrees back. I'm in die Waage, the balance stance. 60% of my weight's in the front foot, 40% is in the back foot. This foot is pointed off at an angle, but not turned out. Right? So this is von Tag. This is the opening of the form, and I'm in the first guard already. To go into the second guard, which is Flug, or the plow, I'm going to perform a passing step. Use my left hand to rotate the sword down and bring it back with the cross turned out just slightly and my hands well back and my point not out to the side but aimed directly at my opponent's face. And unlike most of what we do, my point is aimed up and at my opponent's face, and I'm in a thumb grip. Oh, and my shoulder is turned forward. Okay? Now from here, I want you to notice which side of my sword is up. This edge is up. So I'm going to perform a thrust from here into long point. We talked about Liechtenauer last time. So I'm going to thrust, rotating the sword over completely with my left hand, re-grab, and finish the thrust. Once I am at full extension, I'm going to pull the sword back as I do another passing step, coming into Flug on the right side. Then from here, I'm going to thrust again without turning the sword over this time, and pass again as I pull back into left ox. From ox, I'm going to perform another thrust, turning the sword the whole way over, and then I'm going to pull back into right ox. From right ox, I'm going to drop the sword straight down. Notice the sword does not twist and turn. I'm simply dropping it straight down as I pass forward into into Alber, and I go from Alber back to von Tag. All right, so we'll go back and do the same thing from the other side, but a little quicker now, right? So again, I'm starting in von Tag, I'm in die Waage, balance stance, and I'm going to come to Flug, thrust, Flug, thrust, ox, thrust, ox, thrust, Alber, von Tag. Okay. All right, so now we'll do it from the front. So again, I begin in von Tag, Flug, thrust, Flug, thrust, ox, thrust, ox, drop down into Alber, von Tag. So now we're going to move on to doing the four cuts drill. Now these are just the four simple cuts of the system. These are not the Meisterhaue. These are not the secret cuts of our masters. So it's two cuts from above and two cuts from below. Two Oberhaue, an Oberhaue plural, left and right, two cuts from below, left and right. And the important thing here is to understand that all of these cuts are reciprocals. All of the vertical cuts are done on the 15-degree angle we talked about in the last class. All of the uppercuts, all of the Unterhau, are done on that same rising position. And all of them end up threatening my opponent, okay? So, the key here is learning how to transition in a way that you keep yourself safe, that you make your sword your shield, that you hide behind it like the hero you are. All right, so the first cut is an overhau. We've already talked about how to do that. This is the Zornhau, the cut of wrath. Remember, we lead with the point and follow, cutting on a 15-degree angle with the hilt well over to the left. Now, here comes the part where most people get confused the first time. I'm going to leave my hands out here, and I'm simply going to cut with my hands without moving my arms. So I'm going to do another passing step, and as I do, I'm going to bring the sword back over my shoulder. Now, this is further than you would go in a normal fight, but we bring it here as a training method for new students. And then I cut again using just my hands. My right hand pushes, my left hand pulls. All right? Those are the first two basic cuts. But what I'm going to do is also want to include the Unterhau. So when we do an Unterhau, we drop the point of the sword right along the body and come up. And where everybody screws up, well, two ways. One, they do it with the sword out to the flat instead of letting it drop over. And two, they do it by pushing up with the the right hand. That isn't how an Unterhau is done. An Unterhau is done by dropping the sword over and pushing with the right hand while pulling with the left hand. So, the left hand is actually doing most of the cut, not the right hand. Just as is the case with the Zornhau. So what we want to do is we want to put those together in a sequence that makes us do all the transitions. So we do the Zornhau, come straight back, then we transition to an Unterhau from the left, straight back over the shoulder, Unterhau from the right, straight back to the shoulder, Oberhau from the right, back to vom Tag. Unterhau, Unterhau, Zornhau. Okay.
Action.
So now we'll do it from the front. So Zornhau, Unterhau, Unterhau, Zornhau, vom Tag.